This is John Kane speaking for the Voice of the People, KABF 88.3 FM in Little Rock. We'll have a chat on health and wellness from the University of Arkansas Medical Sciences Center for Diversity Affairs, located 4301 West Markham Street here in Little Rock. Amber Booth McCoy is Senior Diversity Specialist. She is hosting the show. Good morning to you, Amber.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you today?
I am well. And yourself?
I'm good. What's the discussion about today?
Today for COVID Chats, in fact, we are going to talk about mental health, stigmas, stats, and solutions.
Okay. She'll be talking for about 20 minutes or 25 minutes, and we'll take a break, and then she will close the show. The ball is in your court, Amber.
Thank you so much. So, greetings. Hello. Thank you so much for being here with us today for COVID Chats and Facts. My name is Amber Booth McCoy. I am a Senior Diversity Specialist in the UAMS Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We are so happy to have you with us today. And for all of our friends and family celebrating Ramadan, we are wishing you a blessed and happy Ramadan if you are observing that on today. So today we have with us the amazing, the associate professor, the psychologist, the TEDx speaker, and devastating diva, Dr. Tiffany Haynes. Good morning, Dr. Haynes.
Good morning. You know how to make me feel good about myself. I got a little pep in my step after your intro.
I just tell the truth. That's all. I just tell the truth. So let's jump right in and talk, because we're having a global pandemic. We are in a space that we have never been in before as a state, a country, an entire world. And everyone is handling that a little differently, right? Everyone is not everyone is coping or trying to figure out what coping looks like. So let's just talk about that. What is mental health, Dr. Haynes?
So when I think of mental health, I think of it being really our psychological well-being. So it covers everything from how we act, how we think, and how we feel. So I like to think of it kind of like on a spectrum or on a traffic light, for instance, where we're always thinking about how we're thinking, how we're acting, how we're feeling, and how we're coping with stress. And so when we're at that green light, we're at our best. When we're at the yellow light, we might need to slow down and pay attention to some things. And when we're at the red light, we have to stop and kind of think about, what do I need to do to help my mental health? But when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about that whole spectrum, from when we're doing great and we're our best selves to when we're not doing as well.
Okay. And I, even during this time of uncertainty and all of that, the comfort that I want you to know, has come from the title of your TEDx talk, where you informed everyone in the world that it's okay to not be okay. Can you share with us a little bit that it is okay to not be okay?
Absolutely. And I think that really rings true for us right now. So I'll use myself as an example. And when I think about my mental health on that spectrum, there are times when I'm doing really well. And then there are times where I'm kind of in that middle section. I kind of think of it as like I'm treading water. I'm still able to do some things, but I'm not at my best. And so what I'm doing right now is giving myself grace for the times that I'm not at my best, because it is okay to not be okay right now. As you mentioned, we are in a global pandemic. There's a lot of uncertainty. We don't really know what's going to happen. And so for me to always be striving for that 10 level of me being at my best, I'm giving myself some grace and say, it's okay. I'm not okay today. I'm not at my worst, but I'm not okay. And I'm okay with saying that. And I think the importance of us being able to admit and say that when we're not okay is it opens up the opportunity for us to get help so that we can get better.
I completely agree. Again, that has been one of the most calming statements when people ask, or even if I'm talking with friends and family, and saying that it's okay to not be okay, and acknowledging that okay gets better later, right? And allowing myself the grace, or even allowing ourselves the grace to do that. So a lot of times, especially in our community, when we talk about mental health, or we're seeing advertisements or things like that. It's about anxiety and depression. And those are, formal diagnoses and terms. Can you kind of break down anxiety and depression to us? How are they different? What do they look like? All of that.
So first thing is, like, when we're saying anxiety and depression, we have to think about, like, all of us at some point experience some level of feeling anxious or worried and some level of our mood being a little low. And so we experience that all the time. But when we're talking about clinical diagnoses of depression and anxiety, we're talking about when our mood and or our anxious feelings interfere with our ability to do daily activities. So when it's getting so overwhelming that you're not able to do the things that you normally need to do or want to do, then that's when we're moving towards thinking that something is anxiety or depression. So when we talk about depression, we focus a lot on the mood. And it's when you're feeling sad or lonely, blue, kind of out of sorts, and you're not doing things that you normally like to do. So if you were always someone who likes to go to the movies and then all of a sudden you're not finding joy and pleasure from going to the movies, that's something that may be going along with a depressed mood. We also look at other things in depression, like your energy levels, your sleep levels, and even if you're sleeping too much. So if you're sleeping more than 12 hours a day, or you're sleeping too little, so you're getting fewer than 4 hours.
Wait a minute, Dr. Haynes. So if I'm sleeping a lot, it's not, it could be that I'm tired, but it also, like, just wanting to sleep could mean that I'm also depressed?
So it could be. And so this is, I'm giving you the general ones, but really, in order to really know what's going on, you got to go talk to someone who can do a full assessment, right? Because especially right now, you could just be tired because this is a draining period of time. And so you may be sleeping more than normal. But when you have that moment where you're, like, literally not able to get out of the bed, then we're going to start being concerned about, is this depression or is this something else? We need to get an assessment to see what's going on.
And when we talk about anxiety and depression, but they don't have to present at the same time, right? Can I be anxious without being depressed or be depressed without being anxious?
Mm-hmm. About 50% of the people with diagnosable anxiety and depression are going to see them together. So that means about half of the people who have it are going to see them separately. So absolutely, you can have depression or anxiety without having them both. And so one of the things to think about is that sometimes you can have anxious where you have those overwhelming fears or nervousness or, just kind of feeling uncertain and worried, and it's impacting your ability to do your daily activities. But your mood is not where we would consider it low, where you're feeling sad or depressed, or that you're not doing the things that you normally do, or you're not getting pleasure from the things that you normally do. So you can have some differences between the two, and you definitely don't have to have them together, although some people will see both.
And definitely, even myself, I thank God for the field of psychology. I fell in love with the field years ago, but psychologists, as I got older and I needed to reach out to actually see one. And so now I keep one. It's like, you need to keep a PCP, a psychologist, and a good friend, like all of that in order to be my best self. So
on speed dial.
On speed dial. And so that is why I'm so happy I have your number. I am able to call. Yes, won't you do it? So even when we're talking about those diagnoses and such, they're on a spectrum, right? Because what anxiety looks like for me may look different for someone else. So it's not necessarily so. I guess what I'm asking is, when we're talking about it, we need to focus. Do we focus on ourselves? You know what I mean? Versus looking and saying, oh, that person is probably anxious, because it may look different presented in someone else if I'm not a trained psychologist.
Yeah, so I always say, it's important because you're right. This looks differently in everybody. Everybody kind of copes with things differently. Everyone deals with things differently. Everyone has different symptoms. So there's some common ones that we look for, but you want to focus on yourself and not necessarily compare yourself to what other people say their anxiety looks like. So one of the things that I tell people, if you are concerned, if you feel like, I am really, really worried all of the time, I wake up kind of worried, I go to bed worried, I can't really shake it, even if it looks different from what somebody else who says I have anxiety, what they mentioned it looks like, go ahead and get it checked out. Let's get in there early. Let's see what we can do. And, they may say, this is not an anxiety disorder. Or they may be like, you know what, this is anxiety, and we have some tools to help you. So don't let how we compare ourselves to other people and what we think mental illness should look like keep us from getting help if we think we need it.
Agreed. I had a friend once that said comparison is the thief of joy. And in anything, whether you are constantly comparing things on social media or just in your life, and so definitely try not to make those comparisons and allow my story, my outlook to be mine and not based it on someone else's. So we are talking about mental health. What does that look like in the Black community? Do we seek treatment? Do we have mental health issues? Is it more prevalent in our community? Fill us in.
So, yes, we have mental health issues in the African American community. We're not immune from it. And we don't seek help, but
we're not immune. You mean black girl magic doesn't keep me from getting depression or anxiety?
It doesn't. I'm sorry. I love black girl magic, but it doesn't. It's not a vaccine against mental health issues. So you can still be amazing and still have depression and anxiety or some other mental health issues. Doesn't mean you're not amazing. It just means that you have some issues that you might need to get some help with. And we have that in the African American community. And in general, Americans don't seek help at the level that we need to. We know about 30% of the individuals who need help actually go and seek help. And so we see that number in all of our minority communities, but our African American communities as well. So there are people who are out. There's about 70% of the people with a diagnosable disorder are there and not getting treatment.
7 out of 10 people with a diagnosis are not receiving treatment. That is heavy. I mean, that's a lot when we're talking about just being our best selves, functioning at the level in which we need to do things and, getting things done. And maybe even we get so used to not being our best selves that it just seems normal or like life, right? Like that's a heavy number. Who's more likely? Like, is it Black men, Black women? Who's more likely to seek help?
So, and so in general, we're all not seeking help. Women are more likely to seek help than men. And so that probably, I don't have the stats on if that holds true for Black men versus Black women, but I would say it does because we know that there's a gender difference between seeking help.
I think that we talk a lot in our community about our faith. We have faith-based communities and a lot of that. And so sometimes we feel maybe mental health or focusing on mental health or even acknowledging a diagnosis, I felt, because I grew up in a church and things like that. And so for me, coming to terms with the fact that I have anxiety or depression at one time felt like I wasn't being faithful enough, right? I was not being pious enough, the reason that I was having these things. So you've done research in Arkansas, in faith-based communities. Are you finding, what were your findings when you looked at, faith and depression in Arkansas?
So we definitely see some of those same kind of beliefs and attitudes where, if I'm feeling depressed or anxious, I'm more likely to kind of say, well, there must be something I'm not doing. I'm not trusting God. My faith is weak. I'm not, maybe this is punishment for my sin. And so that's very prevalent in a lot of our faith communities here in Arkansas. We're still hearing people who say that. But we're beginning to see some changes. We're beginning to see some changes in our leadership who are able to say, you know what, you can be a person of faith and still, because I heard a preacher say, because we live in a fallen world, we'll have to deal with some issues. So you can definitely be a person of faith and still have to deal with some mental health issues. And because we have all of these resources, we have gifts in the earth, as another pastor put it, to help you navigate those issues. And so I'm beginning to see that change. But the other thing that we're beginning to see is that people are on board with saying, yes, we need to talk about mental health, and yes, we need to have these conversations. But they don't always mean that we need to have it for ourselves. Like, I don't necessarily need it, but I see some people out there who I think need it. So
those people should really talk about that. Those people, right?
Yes. And I want to be helpful because, I want to help them. But I struggle with actually admitting it for myself, admitting that I need some help or I'm not, functioning at my best self. So a lot of times when we're working with churches and church leaders, they are very open to us having a conversation and open to, to having it in a congregation and inviting people. But when we get in there, we still see that kind of, I'm looking at it through a window where I can see that the mental health needs of other people, and I'm not turning that mirror to see the mental health needs of myself.
Mm-hmm. But I am loving the conversations that are happening, or even what I'm seeing as far as social media and just chats that I've had with friends and things, to be able to say, because I guess to me those things were taboo before. Like you said, especially growing up in the church, you just don't talk about those things. And it's not just depression and anxiety, but even more so if we're talking about things like addiction, right? And things like, right, those other coping mechanisms where we often look at addiction as a behavioral, we often look at, as possibly something to do with behavior, or that person just needs to stop that. But with that being an actual mental health actual diagnosis, I find it interesting that even with this going on, we deemed liquor stores essential, right? So, so how is that affecting the mental health landscape? If we have people that are not being already seen regularly, and then we're now in this global pandemic, what are some of the behaviors that we need to watch for where we might be coping and not realize what's actually going on?
So, and that's a great question, because right now we are in a season where we don't have a lot of control. And so usually one of the best ways that we cope is we go into our problem solving. We try to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? But in situations like this, our problem solving coping is not really going to be working right now because we just don't have control over a lot of stuff. And then we also may have had some healthy coping skills that have been taken away because we're staying at home to fight the pandemic. So if you were someone who went to the gym a lot, or, you went and got massages to relax, or you got your hair or your nails done to relax, those things are not available to you right now. So our coping box that we normally use, where we have these tools that we use to handle stress, can look a little different during the pandemic. And so we might start falling back on some coping mechanisms that are not as healthy. And so what I am telling people right now is that I'm not saying that don't drink it all. If you're having a glass of wine, we're not going to say, throw all the alcohol out. But if you see that you're relying on that alcohol to cope a lot more now, and it's not allowing you to be your best self during this pandemic, then you might want to think about, do I have some other coping mechanisms that I can use? So you want to have a variety of coping tools in your toolbox that you can use during this time. And you don't want to just rely on one. And you definitely don't want to rely on one that, if we get outside of moderation, could have some negative impacts on our overall well-being. So that's, alcohol, but it's also eating. A lot of us cope with stress by eating comfort foods, and we're stepping out. And so we are hearing a lot of people talking about, I'm baking because I don't have anything to do, so I just baked the cake. And so now somebody got to eat the cake, so I'm going to eat the cake.
Right.
And so you're doing all of this, and you're coping with your stress, but there's a line where you have to say, okay, I want to make sure that this coping mechanism, I'm not relying on it solely, because if I do too much, if I eat too many of these cakes, it's going to have an overall negative impact on my well-being, both my mental health and my physical health. And we know those two are connected. So when your physical health is not the best, it's going to impact your mood too, and vice versa. So I can't rely on, all the foods and the comfort foods that we normally do. And so you have to kind of think about, what else can I do? Am I making sure that I'm eating healthy foods? Am I making sure that I'm getting outside to see the sun when it's out? Am I opening up windows? Am I staying connected? So being really intentional about connecting with your friends and family. How do I do that now in a pandemic? I think that if you can do video calls every once in a while, it's good because it allows you to have a little bit extra connection with your friends and family. But how can I make sure that I'm having that social interaction? Because we need that to stay well. You want to really have a coping toolbox that you can have a variety of coping techniques that you're using versus just relying on one. And being creative in this time, and sometimes even going back and getting some of those old things that you used to do that you kind of let go. So my sister is crafting, and she hasn't done that in years. She's like making stuff, And, I'm just sending her stuff to make for me.
That's what I'm saying. Can she make me something? I will.
I've been trying to hire her out, and she's not really feeling it. But she's using this to cope. And you might have to go back and pick up some of those hobbies that you left, or do some more creative things that you haven't done before. Some people are trying new things out, and you might have to do some of that so that you have a toolbox full of tools that you can use to handle the stress that we're feeling right now.
I really like the idea of having a toolbox. That's an interesting concept. I mean, I like to think that I have these measures because, I have you and other psychologists on speed dial, and that I know these measures. But the idea of calling it a toolbox to me almost makes it even, a little bit less ethereal. It's like this tangible thing that I can pull out. And it even made me want to think about writing those down, like maybe writing down what's in your toolbox. What are the tools that you're using to cope? And that way, even if, like in the moment, like if I'm anxious in the moment, I may not think about my toolbox, but if I know that I've written it down and I maybe can pull from, one of the measures or behaviors that I wasn't thinking about, that seems like it'd be really helpful to keep with me. That, or I could just always see if I could Zoom your sister and see if she can teach me how to craft, because I'm not crafty. Maybe I should learn a new skill during this time.
But, you want to be kind to yourself. If you're not, I'm not crafty, and it would frustrate me to try to learn to be crafty during this time. So I'm good with allowing her to have that coping mechanism, and I look at something else. But you are absolutely right about, writing it down so that you have a list of things to go to when you are feeling stressed. I have a list of people that I can call. They're a part of my toolbox that I can call if I start feeling like I need something. And I do write down, like, before I go and do the unhealthy coping techniques, what are some other things that I could try first to see if they work? Taking a walk, making sure that I call some people, having girls' night on Zoom, listening to music. I have those things, a list of those things ready to go that I can look at them so that I'm able to cope as well as I can in the most healthy way that I can.
So I'm blessed now with an amazing mate and friend and spouse. But before that, I was a single mom for a long time. And I think about those mothers or parents like me. We're in this time where now kids are being homeschooled. We have parents who did not know that they were going to be homeschool teachers like myself. I'm really hoping that my child has a different teacher next year, because this one that he currently has, homeschool teachers not the best. So if there are parents like me who are saying, you know what, I got these kids in this house, Dr. Haynes. I hear you saying that, I need to talk to somebody. I don't even have time to talk to myself. What are the little bitty things that we can do? What's something that I can adopt, even if it's just 2 minutes, 3 minutes a day, to assist me with getting to a better place? If I just feel too overwhelmed, I'm sick of AMI, I'm sick of these kids. I don't feel like I'm on a ledge, but I also don't feel like I'm being my best self, and I don't even have time to do a telehealth call.
And so, when you talk about people who are homeschooling, my hats are off to you, because I could not even imagine. My nephew he's doing AMI right now, and I tell my sister daily that she is doing a great job. And so before we go into tools, I want to just say that the word of this season is extending yourself some grace. You did not go to school to be a teacher. You did not sign up. You are doing the best you can. And I think sometimes you have to remind ourselves, because especially parents can be really hard on themselves about, they want their children to have the best. I want my child to have the best education they can possibly get. And if I feel like I'm not giving that to them, I start feeling guilty, and that also impacts my mental health. So sometimes you need to just take a moment to say, I am doing the best I can do in times that we have never seen before. And it's not going to be perfect, but I'm still giving it my best shot. Two, I think that sometimes when we are at home with our kids or with, loved ones, and we start getting on each other's nerves, to just accept that everybody is stressed right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we may be a little bit more irritable with each other than we normally are. And so there are some ways for us to sometimes you just have to take a break and take a deep breath. Because sometimes in the middle of stress, we're not even taking these deep cleansing breaths, which are good for our overall mood. We're just kind of on, by the time our feet hit the floor in the morning, we're on go the whole day until we go back to bed. And so sometimes you have to take 2 minutes and just take a deep breath and remind yourself, like, I really am. This is uncharted territory. There's nothing that prepared me for this. I'm doing the best that I can. And then extending that grace to others. Your kids may be acting a little bit differently than you would like for them to. They are also trying to figure out what's going on. They are also feeling uncertainty. You know, their norm is different now. And so extending some grace and understanding that if they're acting out or those behaviors, it may be due that they're trying to figure out what's going on, and they're trying to figure out how they can cope. And so you might have to think about what are some, not just me or what I can do to cope, but what does my family need to cope? Do we have to have some fun breaks where we take 10 minutes and we dance, or we take 15 minutes and we have quiet time where everybody has to go to their own spot, and I don't know what you're going to do, but you have to be quiet.
Ladies, can we take a break?
Yes.
Okay. We'll be back in 3 minutes. This is John Kane speaking for the University of Arkansas Medical Sciences Center for Diversity Affairs, located 4301 West Markham Street here in Little Rock. Amber Booth McCoy, Senior Diversity Specialist, is host with her guests. We'll be back in a few minutes.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
What do you do when you're depressed? Hi, I'm Johnny Erickson Tata, and over 14 million adults in the U.S. are depressed. Statistics tell us that 2/3 of them will not seek medical treatment. When people are depressed, some head for the refrigerator, others max out their credit card shopping, or decide things impulsively, like a drastic new haircut. I know when I feel blue, I withdraw. But that only makes matters worse. Alone with myself, my thoughts turn inward, getting me even further down. Fears, insecurities, and the worst, paranoia, creep in. So, friend, if you are depressed, remember that isolation only aggravates it. So the next time you get down, get busy and get with others. Focus your energy on those whose circumstances are more difficult than yours. We got some great ideas for you at disabilitycampaign.org. It's all about switching focus off yourself and onto others.
Wonder if you should get tested for colorectal cancer? Well, it's the second leading cancer killer in the U.S., and screening helps prevent it. So if you're 50 or older, it's time. Even if it doesn't run in your family. Most often, colorectal cancer occurs in people with no family history. And it doesn't always cause symptoms, especially early on, so don't wait for symptoms to get tested. Screening helps prevent the disease by finding precancerous polyps so they can be removed. Remove the polyp, prevent the cancer. Screening also helps find colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. You might be thinking, oh no, not that test. But here's the thing, you have options. There's more than one screening test. Talk to your doctor to find the one that's right for you. No more excuses. If you're over 50, get tested, because colorectal cancer screening really does save lives. A message from HHS and CDC's Screen for Life campaign.
And welcome back. Thank you for being with us for COVID Chat and Facts. My name is Amber Booth McCoy. I'm Senior Diversity Specialist at the UAMS Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And if you have missed us so far, then you have missed the amazing Dr. Tiffany Haynes, Associate Professor in UAMS College of Public Health, here to give us tips and a toolbox. Yes, a toolbox for our mental health and stress and coping during this time. So I completely agree with everything that you were saying as far as it looks different for everyone in the home, right? And trying to remember that that it looks different and what people need during this time is different. We are in, as I said, a whole new world. And as a diversity specialist, that's exciting to me, right? To get to think about dreaming or rethinking a new cultural landscape and all of the possibilities that are available or accessible now. And I know that that is not the same for everyone. Even it looks different in my two sons, right? And even how my husband copes, or I was just joking the other day, my mother is one of those that she likes to, have a nice structure, framework, collect things. And this is not a time of structure and framework, right? This is an uncertain time. So for her, that looks like gathering information. She is going to watch all of the press conferences and the news, and she is going to have those stations on. And my father, on the other hand, is not. He does not want all the information. It's more like the pandemic's still going on. Okay, well, let me know when it's not. Like, he has all the information he needs. He has all the information he needs right now, right? So it's the equity that I think about when we're talking about mental health, that grace. Some people need a little more grace than others right now, right? And most certainly extending that grace to ourselves during this time. Absolutely. Because it's okay to not be okay, right?
It is okay. And it's okay to say that you're not okay.
I love it. I love it. It has been, please know, it has been my favorite thing to say since your talk. I am not okay today. I may be okay tomorrow, and I will let you know.
But I make no promises,
I make no promises. That's all. Nope.
I'm trying to get. I'm trying.
I am shooting for okay. And then the empathy, because my experience, even though it is uncertain and all of that, I'm still working, right? And I get to thank God that there are still things for me to do to keep my mind and all of that. But that doesn't look the same for everyone, even as far as what that home environment looks like now, right? So in this time of grace and just extending that, just remember, everyone, to be okay. If you need to be okay with not being okay, please know that we have been given permission by the devastating diva, Dr. Tiffany Haynes, and it is my life's motto sometimes. When we're talking about resources, though, where can I go for help? Let's say I am acknowledging that I'm not okay. I have now not been okay for several days or weeks at a time. What is next? I'm at this point where I'm saying, let's talk to somebody. I can't reach you on the phone. Who do I call? Where do I go?
So you have some different options, and I want to say that I think that our mental health providers are doing a great job in trying to very quickly provide services in ways that they have not done it before. So we need to extend them some grace, too. So there's some wait times, and there's some, a few glitches, but they're doing a great job of trying to get services online, telehealth, by phone. And so there's some ways that you can get connected to services. And we have the Arkansas Crisis Line. And so it says, crisis, so people are like, oh, I'm not in crisis, I'm okay. But they also can help you provide connections to services and help you figure out, just some brief, someone to talk to and say, hey, what's going on? And so that number is 1-888-274-7472. And that's the Arkansas Crisis Hotline. We also have the National Alliance for Mental Illness, or NAMI. And so we have an Arkansas chapter, and they have a warm line. So the hotline is usually staffed 24/7. Warm lines are not normally staffed 24/7, but you can usually get them between that 8 and 5 time zone. But they're very helpful in being able to connect you to services. So if you're looking for, I don't know where to go, I don't know who to talk to, you can contact NAMI Arkansas, and their phone number is 501-661-1548.
That's awesome. And can you give that 888 number one more time? That was for the crisis, Arkansas Crisis, did you say?
That's the Arkansas Crisis Line, and it's 1-888-274-7472.
Awesome. And I think that is so correct. While we're talking about the grace, our providers, while they may have gone to school for this training and things like that as far as care for patients, we're now doing that in a whole new way, right? but not even though we had telemedicine, but now everything for the time being is trying to move to telemedicine. And while that provides better accessibility maybe for those who couldn't get there before, so that's great, it's still new for a lot of people and maybe even some distrust when we talk about technology and things like that. So is there a way that I find a provider for me? Kind of like how I look at the same as colleges, right? Every college may not be for me. Like whether it's an HBCU or a PWI, like that may be different as far as how I feel. How do I find the right fit or right provider? Or is it that I just need to talk to somebody, period?
So I would say, a lot of our providers are providing consultations. So they're giving you kind of an opportunity to talk to them. And that's your time to kind of feel like, is this going to work for me? And so there's some things that you might want to think about. And so I've had people say, I don't want to go to therapy because I don't want to just talk about my past all the time. I want to have like solutions that I can put into place right now. And so be honest with your individual. Be honest with people who are talking to you to say, this is what I'm looking for in therapy. This is what's going on. I want to talk to somebody, but this is what I ultimately want to get. And don't be afraid to.
So it's like a date. Is it like a date? Like I'm dating my therapist first, kind of.
Kind of. And don't be afraid to speak up and say, you know what, this isn't quite what I thought. Like if you have, now I would say give it some time. Give yourself some grace. A lot of times we get very anxious and we're like, that's not a session.
So they're not going to fix me on the first one? They're not going to fix me on the first one. I'm not going to be all better after the first session.
Well, like if you get an amazing person, maybe so. But I like to remind people that, you haven't been dealing with these symptoms for just one day. You've been dealing with these issues for a long time, for weeks maybe, for months. Some of us for years. Some of us have been dealing with this for years, but we've been able to kind of just, keep it moving. And now we're realizing we can't keep it moving anymore, so we want to get some help. So there can't be an expectation that first time that something that took you years, you've been dealing with years, is going to be magically gone in one session. So give it some time. But ask your therapist, how long do you think I should be thinking about, I should be worried? Like, when are we going to check back in to see if this is working? At what time point? They may say, I don't know. Or they may be able to say, you know what, we'll check in every 2 a week, or every time you come, I'm going to ask you how your symptoms are going. We're going to take a chart and we're going to look at this over time to see how things are working and what's working well. So I'm a person who likes to get my hair done. And when I go get my hair done, I usually have a picture. I take it in a picture and I say, this is what I'm looking for. And so you have to do the same thing with our therapy. We have to take our picture of what we want to get out of it to our therapist and say, this is what I'm looking for. Do you think you can help me get here? And a lot of your counselors and psychologists and therapists are going to be able to say, yes, I think we can get here. Or they'll be able to say, you know what, this picture may not be the realistic picture for you, but we can get you here. So it's a work together type of thing so that you get the outcome that you want.
I think that is awesome. I guess I haven't thought about that either. You are just dropping jewels today. So I like the idea, of course, of having a toolbox. And then you're right. I'm going to take a picture of my nails that I want and the hair that I want. And I need you to, I'm coming in looking like a Cabbage Patch doll, but when I leave, I need you to make me look like Beyonce, right? Like I'm telling you, this is what I want. And the same thing for mental health. If I'm saying this is what I feel like I'm dealing with, this is where I'm trying to get to, and it may be that, my inner mental health Beyonce is not available. They may need to let me know that I need to shoot for Jill Scott mental health, right? Or just at the very least tell me what that looks like and if I'm being realistic. I like the idea of being able to know what you're looking for as far as what that best self looks like. That is very helpful.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we advocate for ourselves for everything else except like when we go to healthcare. And so advocate for yourself in healthcare, too. Like, take your picture. This is what I'm looking for. Can you help me?
That is great. Are there any apps or things that you use? I know for me, I have absolutely fallen in love with, like, the Calm app, the white noise. So now where when things are silent, most of the time it just feels weird because I normally have crickets going in the background or, there's my beach going. And they have this one app where it allows you to create sounds, like you can make them. So, and it's called White Noise. I have a boat that is rocking in an ocean with a fire. I don't know why there's a fire on my boat, but somehow all of these tales are soothing to me. Is there anything that you're using as far as meditation and relaxing and being mindful?
I have done a few mindfulness apps that I think are helpful as far as being able to get into that space of accepting that this is an uncertain time. And I don't have the name of the app that I've been using, but I can probably give that to you so you to put it online for people. But I've been using mindfulness apps. They have those that are available. There's another app called Mindspace that provides some tips and tools and some connections to professionals that is also available. I think that one is at price one. I've also, yoga helps me, especially restorative yoga. Not the yoga where you have to, really be flexible and to make all, that frustrates me because I'm not there yet. But the restorative yoga. And they have those videos on YouTube. You can just YouTube restorative yoga and sometimes just do a couple of those practices, and that's been helpful.
I'll have to look into that. My favorite part of yoga is the part at the end. I think it's called Savasana.
Yes.
That is my favorite part. It's the first couple of times that I did yoga, I would fall asleep at the end. And my yogi told me whatever happens during that part means that's what your body and mind needed. And now I feel like I only do yoga to get to that last part. I only do it to get to Savasana and find out. I feel like I don't even know if I need to sleep until I get there. When I get there, my body and mind will let me know. So that is my favorite part too. I'm like, get me to the end where we just kind of laying. That's where I want to go. Sit down. So, okay. So I have my toolbox. I'm going to create my picture. I'm going to extend some grace. I'm going to say that it's okay to not be okay. And then in that, if I'm doing all those things, that's me looking inward. How do I help the next person or even my child or even my friend or maybe my mother's living with me now? Like, what are the ways that we can kind of check in with those around us?
I think that you start off by just doing the check-in. Sometimes a simple text message to someone to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, just want to make sure that you're okay, is helpful. And so that's an easy way for us to check in. But the other thing is that sometimes modeling that it's okay to not be okay. I think sometimes we use our social media as to show our highlight reel. So, we only show the best pictures of ourselves. We show us at during quarantine time dancing and having fun and smiling. But every once in a while it's okay to put on there that, today I had to extend myself some grace because I was not as productive as I could have been, and so it's okay. And sometimes just you saying that I'm okay with not being okay today and I'm extending myself some grace, or I've looked in my coping toolbox and I pulled this out to be able to cope today. It gives permission to other people to say, oh, wait a minute, I can do that too. Or you'll start seeing people reach out and say, hey, tell me more about this extending grace thing, how we actually do that. So I think sometimes instead of modeling our highlights, we have to also, you have to be mindful about how much you want to share because you may not want to share all of your moments on social media. But I think that with your friends and with your family and in your house, you can model that here are the things that we're going to do when we're not feeling okay, and because it's okay that we're not okay, but we're going to start trying to work towards coping and getting better. And I think that's helpful when they see you do it.
I definitely think that is important. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I think especially as women, sometimes we get so used to trying to be strong, right, or needing to push through, and resiliency is definitely a characteristic of our community, right? We know that we are resilient and all of that. And my friend was saying, well, I got to be strong for the kids. No. I was like, your kids, to me, need to see us being human. They need to know that I have not been through a pandemic before. This is new for me as well. And I'm not going to know all the answers. I don't have all the answers. So that we allow those that are watching our behaviors, like you said, the grace to accept that they don't need to have all the answers, that they don't need to have, that they are okay if today is not an okay day, and even being free to say that to those around us. So most certainly modeling those behaviors in the sense that it allows the freedom. And like you said, sharing. We see the trophies, we see the triumphs on social media, but the weekend that I sat in the living room on my air mattress, just trying to figure out what this looks like, what all of this looks like, concerns, right? Because my sister is a healthcare professional. She's going to be on the front lines. We are at an academic institution where people are being treated, and I spent that weekend just sitting there with my snacks. It probably looked like a bad movie. And my husband allowed me the space to do that, right? He took care of things because the grace. So I definitely think that being able to share when things are not okay, because I also didn't, like I said, put that not very flattering picture on Facebook, but maybe sharing that story could have helped someone else. So I definitely will be more mindful to share when it's not okay, when I'm not okay on social media sometimes.
And I think it's helpful when we're modeling that we don't just share when we are not okay, but we also share the process of getting back to okay. So, I think that sometimes if we just share the highlights or we just share the lows, but we don't always share that process. And so, yes, you sat on that floor, that air mattress, but at some moment you said, okay, I've mourned, I've worried, I've cried. Now what am I going to do to get to okay? And you started putting that picture together. And that process is also very helpful because some people are maybe stuck in that I don't know what to do. And when they can see you, it's like, okay, I started making a plan. I started doing this. I opened up my coping toolbox. I did these things. And so the process that you use to get back to okay, not the best and not the great maybe, because we're in the pandemic, we're giving ourselves grace. So we may not get to okay, or not the best, but we can get to okay. And that process that we're using to get to okay and stay at okay, people need to see.
I agree. I've been seeing a lot of posts that are like, hey, quarantine check-in, drop this color heart, if it, based on how you're feeling. And if I see that there are people, even that I don't know, that maybe they dropped, the black heart because they're really struggling during this time, I may even just drop them a note in their inbox that just says, that it's okay to not be okay. Let them know, some of my process, but reaching out even to strangers during this time has been also comforting because we're all in this together. We are all experiencing this for the first time. I was sharing with a friend that I right now feel closer to individuals on continents I've never visited and people I've never met because we're all fighting this common enemy at the same time, So there is something empowering and I guess, humanizing about that. Like we talk about the facts and we talk about the numbers and we talk about that, and that part can be overwhelming. That part of just thinking about all of the COVID deaths or what happens if I get it. But then looking at those recoveries, looking at the number of people that have recovered from this and the positive, the outlook that makes a difference during this time. So I'm not excited for a pandemic, but I'm excited to go through this with the world, I guess, and to see what it looks like on the other side and trying to keep that in mind on days where it is not my best day, where I may not be okay. And is okay a spectrum? Does okay today look like one thing, but okay may look like a different thing on a different day?
I think so. I think so. There are days where I'm busier at work, and okay on that day is that I got through all the Zoom meetings without, making faces or saying things or just cutting people off. And I'm like, you know what? We okay today. And then there are other days where I'm going to say, okay is actually getting some of the work, the papers written or something like that done. So I think it looks different based on what I have to do that day and how much energy it takes for me that day. But some days I'm like, you know what? This is going to be okay. It's right here where we at. That's okay.
And I also am fascinated by the fact that we used to have conference calls. Before the pandemic, you call people. Now, we're only video call. Why? Why is that a thing? What happened to the conference calls that we used to have where you just did not, even if you were not in the same building, we did not have to see each other. But
I think that people are trying to do that social interaction. They're trying to connect. And so if I see you, I feel like I can connect with you, and we're working together. But it can be overwhelming when you have
definitely
like
got to work on after 12. I feel like we should make it just a standard business rule that Zoom calls should happen after 12 o'clock.
I agree.
So as we're getting ready to close and end, I just really want to thank you for being with us today, for sharing all of your knowledge, for reminding us to create and write down a toolkit, for making sure that we remember to take a picture of what we think that mental health or that best self looks like when we begin to date or reach out for help. But will you please share with us, again, those resources for help so that, maybe I have realized, again, that it is okay that I'm not okay, but I definitely want to talk to someone and start seeking treatment. I know that UAMS is working on things at our PRI, our Psychiatric Research Institute, is working on providing mental health telehealth calls and conferences to the public. They are currently doing that for employees, and I think that's great. There are lots of employers, so definitely I would tell all listeners to check with your employer. See if they have an employee assistance program available at this time. If you do not have, insurance, or maybe don't know who to call first, so start there. And then, again, UAMS, our Psychiatric Research Institute, we use acronyms so much I forget what real words are.
Right.
And definitely check with us. And then if you would tell us one more time about NAMI and the other crisis, numbers so that we can reach out with it as well.
So the Arkansas Crisis Hotline is 1-888-274-7472. And even though it says crisis, you can definitely call them before you feel like you're in a crisis mode, and they can help you think about connecting to services. And then the other one is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and it's NAMI, Arkansas. So Arkansas has its own chapter, and that number is 501-661-1548. And I know that you can also look for both of those on social media. They both have social media pages on Facebook, so you can like those. They give tips on what you can be doing now, and they also have ways for you to connect to them via social media. So definitely put those on your speed dial or in your friend list on Facebook so you can have easy contact with them if you need them.
Yes, and I would write those numbers down, but I have your number, and so I'm just going to call you. Now, I, again, want to thank you so much for being here with us today. I cannot wait until your TEDx talk is released, and then everyone will get to hear how amazing it is to be, that it's not okay that it's okay to not be okay. I want to thank you for being here with us today. As always, my name is Amber Booth McCoy. I'm a senior diversity specialist in the UAMS Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We will be here every Friday at 11 o'clock for our COVID chats and facts. Coming up, we are going to talk about, or next week, we'll be talking about COVID, the tracking, tracing, and reporting of COVID. Are we sicker than are we appearing less sick than we actually are? Like, what's going on in our community when it comes to COVID and finding numbers and with tracking and reporting? So we will have a guest next week. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, we are the UAMS Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. You are welcome to reach out to us if you have any questions, and we will talk with you next week. Thank you so much for being here.